Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Coach's Corner. I am Adam Gaheba, focal point of Cary, and with me, as always, is Mike Lamb, focal point of Utah. So, Coach's Corner, we are sitting here around talking about, you know, um, let's say, business-specific items that don't have any particular vertical in mind. Hopefully, you guys are coming away with solving some real critical problems each week, and if nothing else, challenging your viewpoints about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you're doing it. Mike, how are you doing today?
Good. Glad to be here
Good.
talking business with you and
Talking
you know
business.
sharing it with our audience and hopefully we can talk about some things like you say that's relevant to everyone
Yeah.
and we'll
Yeah.
touch base on what can help them in their business.
It's almost like you're serving this up for me because talking to everyone and being relevant kind of lends into what I want to talk about today, Mike, which I've had these two P words that have been on my mind as of late. First being perception, and the perception leads into perspective. So I'd like to talk about perception and perspective and how and why that is important within the businesses that we coach, drive, and that all of you run and lead on a daily basis. So, Mike, if I were to say, what does perception and perspective in regards to business mean to you, what would you say?
How we're looking at our our business, what we're doing,
Okay.
and being perceptive, meaning we're interested in learning about the individuals in our business, what we're selling to, the
Okay.
people we work with, and listening. Because change is happening all around us all the time,
Mhm.
and if we're not perceptive to what's going on around us, then we're not going to be open to change, and we're going to get left
Yeah,
behind.
I love that. I also think it lends really well with let's call it incarnation of that word, which is perceive. And it is, do we know how people are viewing us? Do we know how people are perceiving us or, taking what we are saying either at face value or how they are evaluating the output of what we are presenting as the business, as the organization, as the message, right? So you could take this in multiple different ways. You can look at it from your sales and marketing perspective and say, are our targets, actually getting out the value that we are intending to provide? Um, Great question. It's one that I don't think people are evaluating nearly enough. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about how ideal clients seem to be continuously changing, and with the markets being with where they are, there's a lot of shifting that's going on. And how you're being perceived right now I think is extremely, extremely important. How about you?
No, agreed. Total. Like as a coach, I have to be very conscious all the time of the perception that I'm portraying.
Mhm.
It's just a simple example. For instance, if I treat my calendar as kind of something that, I'm relaxed, you can come and go as you please. Well, all of a sudden I can't get any appointments to follow through. I can't get customers to do what I want them to do. But if I'm following my calendar and strictly adhering to it, this is a simple thing, but if I'm not, I've seen this happen once already since I've been a coach, and it's if I get loose with those type of things, the perception is that I'm relaxed about everything, and all of a sudden I can't run my calendar right.
So that means that you're not
At times,
driving the business the way you want to be driving it, right?
yeah, exactly. If I'm letting the business drive me, it's gonna go all over the place.
I love what you just said there. Let the business drive you. People are perceiving that you don't have the structure, the rigor, the discipline, and then they feel like they can do whatever they want whenever they want. Do you know how many business owners we talk to have that same sentiment? When they all say, and I hate this phrase, but I'll say it, they want to work, they don't want to work for the business. They want to work on it, right? And that implies growth. right? That implies, not looking at the day-to-day things. But what you're saying is people's perceptions of the way that we run ourselves, with the way that we present ourselves, the way that we present our company, our organization, our products or services has a lot to do with the interactions that we have.
Yeah, I've heard it in simple terms as letting the tail wag the dog. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, and if we're running our business that way, and it does happen, and we're everyone in a business owners, business leaders, we're all waking up in the morning sometimes, and things are happening all the time, and happening fast. And that's when we end up in that scenario where it's like, oh, the business is running me or the tail's wagging me around. It's
Hmm.
if I'm putting that perception off, then it's gonna keep getting worse. So I
Agreed.
need to get control and also be willing to listen to feedback and get information from others to help me become better
Right.
and avoid those pitfalls and prepare for them really.
Yep.
Um,
So I did say that there's a secondary P word here, and let me kind of bring that guy in. Perception really is all about perspective. It's about where you're standing, where you're viewing, where your line of sight is. Um, you know, I think for far too many people, we surround ourselves with like-minded thinkers, people that think the same way. Why? Because it's easy for us to kind of adapt and understand how someone is going to, think and have the same or similar mindset. Now, what that does for you is it makes your initial decision points easy. People tend to agree, they acquiesce, they're along the same path. What that doesn't do is challenge the status quo, right? It doesn't get you to think outside that box or to look at a problem from a different angle. And I think perspective is something that we provide as coaches on a daily basis. Here's a perfect example. Um, it's very common that I'll sit down and after going through a particular topic for a module for a given week, I'll pause and state, what's your biggest challenge this week? What's your biggest red flag? What's your biggest problem? And then, we'll get into something. And it's because I want people to walk away with a sense that there's an action plan to solving something that's urgent for them now. And one of the things that I always ask when they tell me what that problem is, okay, well, what do you want to do about it? Or what action did you take? And they'll go tell me. And then I'll take my perspective hat, right? And I'll be like, well, did you ever think about XYZ? Or, what's another way you could have gone about solving that or trying to solve that? And people kind of get quiet, and sometimes it flusters them because I'm forcing them to think outside the box and to think in a different manner than they're comfortable or normally would have. What that's showing you is that that's forcing a different perspective down and getting people to really reflect and look at something from a different angle. You can have huge breakthroughs when you break down those barriers, those silos of repetition and the normalized patterns around solutioning, around brainstorming, etc. And you start looking at things from other angles. I absolutely love that. So I think the perception that we provide drives perspective, and getting that alternative perspective is paramount for our success.
yeah, and you don't want to allow for groupthink to take control.
Mhm.
Because if you are doing that and everyone's just agreeing on one voice, it's that can be a slippery slope that will get you every time. You have to step back as a leader, and even if you're the one leading the group think, you
Mhm.
have to stop and say, is everyone just agreeing with me, or am I too overpowering in the meetings, or what can I change as a leader to
Mhm.
get us off the track of just doing what I say all the time?
What do we
And
always say, right? You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
yeah,
We need to push
yep.
that narrative more, right? And so getting that alternative perspective is forcing some of that uncomfortable discussion points and views and analysis. But what that does is it actually opens up doors. It opens up avenues and paths forward for a potential breakthrough that you might not have seen if everyone was just so quick to acquiesce to a particular direction or path forward.
Yeah.
I
And
don't know.
one of the number one time wasters I see with people is habits, doing things out of habit. And we don't want to get into habits of doing things the same way all the time. I, I always use this example. I change things up in the morning on my morning ritual just to shake up my habits, because if I'm not changing my habits and behaviors once in a while, well, I won't be open to something new.
So
And
why do
I
you
could
think
be doing the same thing every day for the rest of my life, which is not what any of us want to
why do you think
do.
being open to something new is so critical, especially given what we kind of talked about the last 2 weeks? Why is that so important now?
Well, it's everything's evolving, the world's changing by the day, and how we're approaching things, decisions are being made differently today than they were a month ago, um, severely more than they were a year ago.
Mhm.
And people in our market, our clients, our employees, they're thinking differently than they were last year.
So
And
let
if
me
we're
ask
still
this.
trying to sell and do things the way we did it last year, we need to stop and think about changing.
Why is it so important to do now, though? And yes, I know to change, to evolve, but what are the ramifications if we don't? And let's frame this in the context of your competitors. Why is it so important now?
We'll fall behind and we'll stay where we're
Bingo,
at.
bingo. Because if you're not trying to think ahead, if you're not thinking about competitive advantage, if you're not doing competitive analysis right now and thinking about maybe trying something new, introducing a new product line, um, bringing in a new service plan structure or something different, I guarantee you, your competitor is. They are, right? If you're staying still and you're staying stagnant right now, and you're thinking that you can just wait everything out, I guarantee you'll be left behind. And, unfortunately, Mike, I have had a lot more conversations over the last month and a half, 2 months, where especially small businesses, um, have stated, where they used to feel really good and comfortable saying that they had a 6 to 9 month runway, that runway is shrinking,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, their threshold is quickly closing in and slowing down. And so you've got a few options when that happens. One, stay the course, plow through, think about, market corrective. Um, or that's not something I would advise right now. It's test new boundaries, look for new alternatives, really spend your time right now doing the market analysis, understanding your clients, understand the market trends, understanding what is selling, right? Look through your books. What products, what services, what price points are moving right now? Make sure that you're looking and taking the perspective of how can I exacerbate and pull those wins out at a larger scale. That, my friend, is how to take advantage of what some would say is a negative situation and make it a positive.
And we're discussing something with regards to competition. We're talking, hey, what is the competition doing? Let's stop thinking about competition. I talk to clients about this all the time. Don't worry about what they're doing. If we're worrying about what they're doing, then we're going to be a step behind them. We need to worry about what we're doing today as a business leader, what we're doing to improve our product, improve our services, whatever it is. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Focus on your business and making it better.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that to me I've witnessed so many times in multiple industries where if you get hyper focused on what the competition's doing and trying to do the same or improve on what they're offering. No, that's too late. We need to be focusing on what we can do today to improve our product.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I will say though, Mike, I do think knowing what your competitors are up to is important though. I'm not saying get fixated on it. I'm not saying mimic it because mimicking is, while it's a form of flattery, that's stating that they're doing something right and you're not. So you're trying to do that. I think what we're really talking about here is finding that next item, that next big thing, that next driver that is going to be a differentiator for you and your business. I think, I used this phrase with you before this taping started, but we have to use specificity as a differentiator, right? People want things that are unique. They want things that are one-offs. They want things that are tailored to who? Me? You. Be unique. Specificity is a driver. How do you get that specificity? Well, it's all about your perception and your perspective, right? Let's wrap this all back up into a nice, neat package. But we have to be thinking about growth right now. We have to be thinking about how we are addressing our problems, and we can't just continue down those same paths. You have to take that TV timeout, right? That big 20-second timeout for all you basketball fans out there. And we need to be thinking about how, yeah, see, how can we try to spin this and how can we look at this from a different angle, right? If we're constantly running, swapping back between a man-to-man and a zone all game, and then you got the last ten seconds, maybe go box and one. Change it up. Bring a new wrinkle, bring a new perspective. In the sporting realm, you constantly hear people say they were outcoached because they weren't prepared for X. Well, why is that specific to sports? It's not. Those very same principles can be utilized in business.
Agreed. Change that perspective. Have somebody else look at it with you, um,
Well,
or stop and look at things differently.
so I mean, this is why it's so important to surround yourself with people that think differently. Um, this is why it's important. If you have a nucleus that is very one-sided and views, things the same way or has all these same behavioral styles or trends, that's even more of a reason to bring in someone like you or I, Mike, right? Uh, Everyone needs a sounding board. We've mentioned that, what, 3, 4, 5 billion times. But the reality is, it's not just the sounding board and someone that you can talk to, but it's someone to challenge the mindset and to ask if you've thought about X or you've thought about Y. And chances are, if the immediate answer isn't yes, then you probably need someone to continue to challenge and force you to become uncomfortable and start thinking about things a different way. That's how you elicit growth. Growth in oneself, growth in the decisions, growth in the company structure or the dynamic or the direction. Growth. Everyone wants it. You can't get it doing the same thing in repetition over and over and over. That's it.
That
That's where I'm at here today, Mike.
nailed it. I couldn't agree more. And I think as coaches, we get the opportunity to come in, ask those hard questions, and that's what we do. And that's I'm not trying to hardcore pitch us right now, but I am. We come in as coaches to help you get a new perspective, and we'll ask the questions. We may not give you all the solutions.
Hmm.
You have to find those, but we're
Mhm.
going to ask the questions to get you going. And so
Love
that's
that.
what the most fun I have as a coach is when I get to just sit and listen after asking a good question.
Or better yet, when people say, I never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
Huh, great.
Never thought of it like that.
Job here is done. Well, you know what, Mike? On that note,
Back up.
there we are. So, all of you listening out there, thank you very much for tuning in for another slightly shorter version of Coach's Corner today. But, Mike, another riveting discussion, my friend. Thank you very much for joining. I look forward to this call every single week. And I hope you all out there are having a great week yourself. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or future topics you'd like us to discuss, please comment on our LinkedIn posts for this and any other episode, and we will be happy to tackle in the extremely near future. So, for Coach's Corner, signing off. Take care, all. Bye bye.
Thanks.